Well, I guess it's fitting because he didn't really fit into the dumpster fire that is the Pittsburgh Steelers at all. This is another edition of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I am Mike Asti coming at you from the Beaver County Auto Studios up above Market Square here in downtown Pittsburgh. And Mike Munchak is gone. Mike Munchak is now a member of the Denver Broncos coaching staff, leaving Pittsburgh and jumping ship to the Broncos in what can only be described as a lateral move. It's just a lateral move, sorry. Mike Munchak leaving Steelers for same position with the Broncos. Same position with the Broncos. SteelersNow.com, a new venture here in the Pittsburgh Sports Now family. And that says it all. Mike Munchak leaving Steelers for same position with the Broncos. So it's a lateral move. By definition, that cannot be argued. It's a by definition lateral move. And it's indicative of the mess that the Pittsburgh Steelers have become. It's embarrassing to the Pittsburgh Steelers when you think about it, too. This is a marquee franchise with tons of history, with the most Lombardi trophies, with all these Hall of Famers, and an incredibly successful, rich family that is NFL royalty. And they have an assistant coach, their offensive line coach, who is one of the few that actually was successful at his job this past season. He did a good job. Not many can say that. There were some that played well, but this was a team that disappointed. He did not. His offensive line produced. His offensive line actually helped James Conner become a Pro Bowler and exceed expectations. His offensive line was still clicking on all cylinders even without Le'Veon Bell, when many thought Le'Veon Bell's absence would kill the Pittsburgh Steelers. He kept them above water, at least in the running game with James Conner when he was healthy, without Le'Veon Bell. Samuels was able to come in and do well. The offensive line was really able to produce and protect Big Ben, who threw for the most yards and touchdown passes he has in a single season of his entire career. I know he threw for the most picks as well in the league, but the offensive line is not responsible for Ben's mistakes because some of them were boneheaded mistakes. And the offensive line played well. Mike Munchak did his job. He's one of the guys that I've been saying for weeks and even said in the past show that if anything could go right this offseason, it would be retaining Mike Munchak, keeping him on the Pittsburgh Steelers staff. But yet he's now with the Denver Broncos. And yes, I know, because these are the responses I was getting and all of my colleagues are getting when we bring this up. I know he has family in Denver. I know that his daughter just gave birth to a child and he now has, I believe, a granddaughter in Denver. I know that he's a family man. I know that you want to be close to your grandkids when you're 60 years old. I get it. I know that when you're a grandparent, you may love your grandkids more than even your children. I'm obviously not a grandparent here. I'm not even a parent, but I get it. I've been told by my grandparents they would move heaven and earth for me and they love me more than their children. I understand wanting to be close to your grandchildren. But I also know from family who have done this that it's not usually wise to move to be near your grandkids, to move your life and uproot your life to follow your grandkids, to follow your kids even. Usually not a wise decision. You don't know what their life's going to hold. So that's a risk right there. And it's also hard for me to believe that if the Pittsburgh Steelers were exceeding expectations or reaching expectations, maybe is the better phrase, that Mike Munchak would be going to Denver, would be becoming a Broncos offensive line coach right now. If this Steelers team who entered the year thinking they had a chance at the Super Bowl, that last year won 13 games and while they lost in the second round was one of the best teams in the AFC, that usually is a playoff team, that with all this talent is usually a contender for the AFC crown or the Lombardi trophy. That if they were living up to their talent and were in the playoffs, even if they had already been eliminated, but were a playoff team, that he would be leaving for the exact same position, a lateral move to the Denver Broncos, because that is the nail on the head. Obviously, if he had a chance at a better job, if he had a chance to be head coach of the Denver Broncos, obviously you leave for that position. And again, he did have a chance for that. He interviewed to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Many teams besides the Broncos were asking the Steelers for permission to talk to Mike Munchak. They were gearing interest in Mike Munchak. The Miami Dolphins were rumored to also be interested in Mike Munchak. Now, reports were he didn't want to go to Miami, which I can't blame him. I mean, I'd love to be in South Beach. I'd love to be in South Beach all the time, but it's not necessarily the best environment to win. They usually disappoint there. The talent isn't necessarily rich there. They're without a franchise quarterback there, or really anyone to be waiting in the wings. Big question marks in South Beach, even though it's nice to be in South Beach, for sure. He said no to that job. He's a 60-year-old man. He's not a 31-year-old man like myself. He doesn't need to be in South Beach. Although, retiring in Florida, that ain't too bad. And it happens all the time. Bring the grandkids down there. He said no to the Dolphins. But he didn't say no to the Broncos. The Broncos said no to him. The Denver Broncos said no to Mike Munchak. The Denver Broncos interviewed him, and they didn't hire him. They hired somebody else to be their head coach. And now, weirdly enough, look at this dynamic, Mike Munchak. His boss, the head coach of the Denver Broncos, well, is two bosses here. John Elway and the Broncos said no to him for a better job to be head coach. That's his boss that's already rejected him in a way. Then his direct boss will be the head coach of the Denver Broncos, who got the job that Mike Munchak wanted. Mike Munchak interviewed for that job. He obviously wanted to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. That would have been a big step up in his career. It would have been a great opportunity for him, and it would have been amazing to get that opportunity after the Steelers disappointed this year. It would have been recognition for how well he's done his job as the offensive line coach, and it was surprising that even a season ago, he didn't leave for a better position. There were rumors then. He didn't want to go then. He liked his environment then. Stayed longer then, maybe because he thought he could win a championship with the Steelers. Maybe because he saw all that talent. Maybe because he liked Mike Tomlin and the environment around there. Maybe he felt comfortable with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, granted, that was then. All of that clearly has changed now. Maybe he doesn't know how much longer Mike Tomlin's going to be there. And as I said in previous shows, and I'll always say and bang this drum, the Steelers aren't going to fire Mike Tomlin. But whenever his contract's up, maybe if they have another disappointing year, maybe he's not retained. Separate from even the Mike Tomlin conversation, because again, they're not going to fire him, and he's going to certainly be back for next season. This Steelers team disappointed. This Steelers team not only disappointed on the field, but they disappointed Mike Munchak and people who are sane, and people who are of a sound mind, and people who have character off the field. Mike Munchak, I opened the show by saying he didn't fit in. So it's fitting he would leave? Well, he didn't fit in because he was a sane, reasonable, character-filled individual who didn't want to put up with this drama and all this mess. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a dumpster fire. Throw the memes up. They're a dumpster fire. And it's so much so they're in the headlines of drama during the NFL playoffs that they didn't even make, despite all their talent. Despite the quarterback, who's a future Hall of Famer, throwing for the most yards and touchdown passes of his entire career. Despite AB, even with a game missed and all that drama there, having an historic 100-plus reception, 15-plus touchdown reception type of season. That's only been done a handful of times in NFL history, and a guy named Randy Moss is one of them. They underachieved and missed the playoff despite Juju Smith-Schuster, who was voted team MVP, having another phenomenal year and even having a better season than he did his rookie year, which was great for a rookie. But he actually had more yards than AB. They missed the playoff despite James Conner filling in for Le'Veon Bell admirably and having an all-pro type of year, becoming a Pro Bowler, even with his injuries. And I did this for other shows. I can go on and on about the defense and the how you don't want to blame the referees and how the missed calls aren't at fault because of Ben's mistakes and the team's mistakes and they lost games they shouldn't have lost. I went into that before. They're the reasons why they didn't make the playoffs. Nothing against, not the responsibility of Mike Munchak. He did nothing wrong to miss the postseason. And I'm not going to be one of those guys either because I've seen this where I'm going to argue the sky is falling because Mike Munchak is gone. He just was an offensive line coach, to be real. He was great at it. He's one of the best in the business at his position, and you don't want to lose him. It would have been the best move of the Steelers' offseason of drama to keep him. That would have been great. But with him gone now, that doesn't mean the world's over and they can't possibly rebound with still a lot of talent on this team, regardless of Antonio Brown. However, when you scroll through the dial, when you scroll through the ticker there on social media, and you see this, Jeremy Fowler with ESPN covering the Steelers here locally. I see him around the Steelers facility all through the season. Mike Munchak to Denver as O-line coach. That's a big one. Steelers' contract was up and Broncos pound Steelers O-lineman loved playing for him. That's Jeremy Fowler there on Twitter. That got to be embarrassing for Steeler fans. Because, yes, you're going to give him the right to interview for a better job, and a better job means a promotion. It means if they would have hired him to be offensive coordinator, or they would have hired him to then be head coach, which he was interviewing to be the head coach. He interviewed to be the head coach. His boss now got the job that he wanted. Awkward. Awkward. You don't think it's going to be awkward in the back of his mind? He might not be thinking in meetings next year if they're not winning. Hey, I could do better. This was my job. I should have this job. But the Broncos didn't hire him, so they already rejected him once, just a couple weeks ago. In all actuality, it's fresh. And again, I get he wanted to be close to family. I get his granddaughter was born 4.7 pounds, 8 ounces. I know it. You're not breaking any news to me. And again, that weight, obviously, I'm throwing it out there. They're probably a solid guess. We'll see what the betting odds are on that one. But you're not breaking any news when you're saying he has family out there. I know it. You know it. Your brother knows it. Your grandma knows it. Everybody knows that. But the entire coaching profession is not to where you go to your family. You take the best job to move up in the ranks. You take the best job that puts you in the best position to succeed. Coaches move and move cities, and they're not near their family, or their family moves with them constantly. It's one of those professions, it's, aside from being in the military and being a military brat, if you're a child of a coach, you're going to be moving a lot. You're very rarely going to be secure in an area. And Mike Munchak knows that. The Steelers aren't his first ever job. He's been with the Steelers since 2014, but he was elsewhere prior. It wasn't always convenient for him. And I'm sure, I want to make this clear too, I'm sure that the granddaughter and his family being in Denver played a role. I'm not here to say that it was a 0% factor. But I'm also not here to say that the Steelers' mess, the dumpster fire that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, the fact that Antonio Brown is not returning anyone's phone calls, yet is all over social media with Instagram Lives, James Harrison, Chad Ochocinco. Antonio Brown is no longer Antonio Brown. He's Ocho Quattro now, really. He's become Ocho Quattro, being mentored by Ochocinco. They're smoking cigars, still not returning anyone with the Steelers' phone calls, texts, or DMs, or carrier pigeons. No communication between Brown and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still, now several weeks after Week 17 when he missed that game, because they didn't have the MRI that they scheduled him to have, because he left midway through that game and quit on his teammates, whether they want to admit that or not. I know a lot of them are liking posts and are still kind of being friends with him and want to support him. And I'm sure it's a locker room divided, and many want him back and many don't. And it clearly appears the Steelers don't want him back. based on Rooney's comments, and that I would predict he's not going to be back, which I got into in past shows and we'll get into in future shows. But I'm sure that's divided. I'm sure some do want him there for his supreme talent. He's the best receiver in football, and they know that. They want to win. But you don't think Mike Munchak sees Pound C liking Antonio Brown's Instagram, where Antonio Brown's not communicating with Tomlin, not communicating with anyone with the Steelers. You don't think Mike Munchak hears Art Rooney II talk to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and Jerry Dulac, one of the most, him and Ed Bouchette, one of the most senior Steeler writers in this city, and says he cannot possibly envision a scenario where Antonio Brown is with the Steelers in training camp. I mean, there's no argument anymore. That speaks volumes. Art Rooney II cannot envision a scenario? Well, if Rooney can't envision a scenario, how can you? You don't think Munchak sees and hears that? You don't think he was listening to the Mike Tomlin press conference at the end of the season where myself and the rest of Pittsburgh media and their whole families and their kids were there because it was packed to the gills? People were coming from other cities to get to that press conference. You don't think he heard the fiasco that was? You don't think he was aware of how asinine that press conference was and how the tenor of that press conference was about one player leaving midway through a game, not playing in the biggest game of the season, the team disappointing, all the drama that was there? That was that press conference. You don't think he heard that and soaked that in? And again, if he left for a better job, sure, even if it's not the Broncos. If he left to be a head coach or even an offensive coordinator somewhere, or even be signified as the assistant head coach and I understand more money is already coming with him in Denver. I'm sure he'll get a raise now financially. But it's a lateral move is my problem. The Steelers, number one, separate from this being indicative of the mess that is the Pittsburgh Steelers offseason, they could have handled this better. Whether Mike Munchak wanted to go to family or not, say you guys are right. Say he just wanted to go with family. Say he would have taken a lower job to be with family. Say he doesn't care that it's a lateral move. Say he understands he missed out as being a head coach there, but is not going to feel awkward working for the guy that beat him out for the position and is going to be mature about it. Okay, I don't believe all of that, but okay, guys. The Steelers still could have said, too bad, Mike Munchak. I know we're a classy organization, but we want to win here. And you're the only one who really did your job this past season. They didn't have to have him be relinquished in this way. You could let teams talk with him, but you extend him immediately when he's not going to be the head coach. You don't let this fester for a couple more weeks of more drama. The longer the Steelers offseason goes, the more drama there is. You'll paint a worse picture as we go. The Steelers could have stopped this. So it's embarrassing to the Pittsburgh Steelers that they let this guy go in this way. And it's also indicative and really speaks volumes to the dumpster fire mess that is the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. Or really this year and a half since they got upset and lost that divisional playoff game to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That disappointment there, till now. Missing the playoffs, the Le'Veon Bell drama not playing the year, Antonio Brown's throwing furniture off a balcony, that story coming out, missing Week 17, not talking to anybody. Mike Munchak maybe becoming head coach of the Broncos, getting turned down for that position, don't want the Dolphins job, and all of a sudden he ends up in Denver anyway? So he leaves the Steelers. Here's the headline. This makes sense. Steelers.com again, Steelers.com. Check us out. Website I run here for the Pittsburgh Sports Now family, Pittsburgh Sports Live. Steelers.com. SteelersNow.com. Steelers.com is the official. Go there, I guess. Doesn't help me. But SteelersNow.com. Mike Munchak leaving Steelers for same position with Broncos. We should have capitalized same position. Same position should have been in caps, even if the rest was in regular headline case. Because that's the kicker. He didn't get a better job. Coaches do not leave situations that are good. They don't leave positive, well-run situations of winning. And if the Steelers were really a championship contender, because mind you, the Broncos aren't either. The Broncos have more question marks at quarterback certainly than the Steelers do. The Broncos have more question marks overall in that team certainly than the Steelers do. The Broncos weren't a playoff team either and were worse the year before and have overall less talent than the Steelers. The Steelers are logically, you'd figure on paper, that doesn't mean off, but on paper are a better team than the Broncos for next season. It doesn't make sense that you would stay one more year after getting offers last year, getting looks last year, and potentially having a chance to be a head coach or get a better job last year. You don't want none of that. You're going to still be there this year. A lot of that was his decision. Because you want to win, you want to stay with and I would assume here, I don't know him personally, but if you're going to make that decision, you like what's going on with the Steelers. You wouldn't stay somewhere if you don't like what's going on. So he stayed with a franchise that was winning, that he felt comfortable in, that he liked what was going on there. His daughter didn't live in Pittsburgh then, by the way. There was no grandkid, but she didn't live in Pittsburgh then. And then a season later, after all this drama and the mess the Steelers had become, just 1,000 times more than last year, even though there was some drama last year, too. I covered the team then as well. I know, but Alejandro Villanueva was standing in front of the team, the national anthem. CNN was in press conferences. I get it, but it wasn't the drama of this year. Or this past season now. He got through all that, but now he wants to do a lateral move to the Broncos for family. Again, family was probably part of it. But family couldn't have been everything. Family wasn't everything. And you're never going to convince me the mess that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, the drama that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the dumpster fire. Say it what it is. Say it with me while you're watching. Sound it out. The dumpster fire. The dumpster fire that is the Pittsburgh Steelers is, not was, still is a dumpster fire. Doesn't play a role into this at all either? You're telling me the Steelers being so dramatic, everything going on in the dumpster fire that they are, was also not a factor? Again, he didn't leave for a better job. He left for a lateral move to a worse team. Come on. They should never have let it get this far. They should have extended him when they could once he wasn't going to be a head coach and said, I don't care about family. I want to keep you here. There's no coddling. There's no crying in baseball. There's no coddling in football. But separate from that, even if you wanted to, even if you want to be nice, okay, I get they're classy. You want to be nice. I don't believe that it's just for family. No way, no how. So lateral move. Offensive line coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now he's going to be offensive line coach for the Denver Broncos. Is he going to hope somebody dies so he can be a head coach? Because they already rejected him once. Why would they want him if something goes wrong there the second time? What would make him different being an offensive line coach with them than he was an offensive line coach with the Steelers? Eventually, once you do the job after a while, you got to get a promotion if you think you're going to move up the ranks. That's why this was the year for him. All these jobs and all the Cliff Kingsbury getting a job with the Arizona Cardinals being a head coach after a losing run with Texas Tech in college. And that probably more for his looks and swag, to be honest with you. And I can say that and be perfectly in touch with my masculinity. But it's a lateral move, guys. Mike Munchak makes a lateral move jump to the Denver Broncos, and you're going to give me that it's just family? Come on. No way. No way. Mike Munchak going to the Denver Broncos, leaving the Steelers for a lateral move, leaving the Steelers for the same position with the Denver Broncos after being turned down to be their head coach, speaks volumes to the dysfunction, the drama, and the dumpster fire that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially this offseason. Want to remind you to check us out. Check Beaver County Auto out. They're our studio sponsor here with Pittsburgh Sports Live. Check our YouTube channel out with Pittsburgh Sports Live and click subscribe. Click subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make it easier for us to get this content to you. And for any of you who need that even clearer, click on the subscribe button right there. There it says it. Click on the subscribe button. Support Pittsburgh Sports Live. Just type it in YouTube on the YouTube search, Pittsburgh Sports Live, and you'll get it. Just click on the subscribe button. If you're already watching this video, which obviously you would be if you're going to hear this, click subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at PGH Sports Live on Twitter. Follow our entire family of networks within the Pittsburgh Sports Now family, Pittsburgh Sports Now on their website and social media, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, as well with PHN and what's going on there, especially now the Penguins are the only team in season here in Pittsburgh. Got even some more baseball-related shows here coming up on PSL, even though there's not a website yet, but that might be coming soon, off of some comments Neil Huntington said as I roll my eyes. That will be touched on in the future on PSL. Make sure to find all this content, our golden quality content with Pittsburgh Sports Live on pghsportslive.com, on our website, pghsportslive.com. All of these shows are archived there for your viewing and listening and even reading. There's some blurbs. Pleasure there, pghsportslive.com. And where this article's from, article of the day here on the news, Mike Munchak leaving Steelers for same position with Broncos, SteelersNow.com, the new outlet. We're already kicking you-know-what and taking some names, so keep on helping us out, and you'll enjoy the content. Absolutely, it's an enjoyment guarantee here for Mike Asti, and if you don't, it'll make you think. How about that? It'll be a little different. We're going to take some different spins. We'll give you everything, the news, the analysis, the fun, the entertainment. You can find it all there. SteelersNow.com. So even if you don't enjoy it, feel free to let us know that you hate it and send me some hate mail, criticize me, jump in my DMs, troll me. Go ahead, as long as you engage. I'm still the winner then. Wink, wink. But that's all for this one. Also follow me there and deliver all that hate at MikeOsty11 on Twitter. So Mike Munchak could have been the move of the offseason to keep him. And it could have happened, whether he wanted to leave for family or not. They could have made sure he did stay, even if they weren't being nice to the guy. He did his job, and he didn't really fit in here, though. Didn't fit in with this dysfunctional Steelers team at all. Did not fit in. So now a lateral move, he jumps to the Denver Broncos. Really indicative of the mess that the Steelers have been this offseason, the dumpster fire that they currently are. And he's going to be the offensive line coach there. So no promotion for him. Lateral move. He down takes a job working underneath the guy who got a job over him and for a franchise that rejected him just a few weeks ago. Hey. All right, Mike Munchak. Keep on keeping on, and I hope you enjoy your grandchild. And maybe you'll go conquer over in Denver there as we keep on conquering here with Pittsburgh Sports Live, and Beaver County Auto conquers themselves one day at a time.